Say the line!
And if you're scared of crashing your car, you think you have a chance of winning at that point?
Oh! And he can't get there, and he wrecks Logano. Logano blocked. Logano moved down, blocked.
Boy, howdy, do we have a lot to talk about in the first two duels that the next-gen car has competed in. We're talking the racing product itself, we're talking team performances, and of course we're talking much more, including that crash on the last lap of Duel 2. Let's get into it. Holy smokes, wow. Okay, so I think the newer NASCAR fans are going to hate this year's Daytona 500. But I think old school fans might actually really get something that they haven't gotten in a while. And I'll explain that in a little bit. The first thing I want to mention, because I'm going to forget about it if I don't, is I need to mention the two open cars and teams that got in today. And ultimately, it was a bad day for Motorsports Business Management, Carl Long's team. Both of their cars went home. Now, the good news is neither of them went home on the back of a wrecker, and maybe that was ultimately the goal for them. Get some track time, don't wreck, hope your competition wrecks, and you get in. Ultimately, they were almost in with J.J. Yaley until a last lap pass by Kaz Grala to get in for the money team in Duel 1. And then Greg Biffle looks actually really pretty strong for NY Racing, his RCR-prepared Hendrick engined car. In fact, I think the money team also had a Hendrick engine, so good day for the Hendrick engine shop. We know those cars are fast, or at least those engines are fast. But those are the two that got in. Jack Villeneuve, as you can see, he's going to be watching over my shoulder all day long, or all video long here. He was already in, as well as Noah Gragson, who both Villeneuve and Gragson were real smart, didn't get involved in anything, didn't tear the car up, even though Villeneuve did have some issues with a throttle cable. Hopefully they'll have that finished or fixed for the Daytona 500 and won't have to worry about it. It looked like a lot of the open teams were having a lot of problems. Even Greg Biffle, whose car was fast, they didn't get his fueling very good. So, let's talk about that last lap of Duel number 2, because if you saw the intro, you know already. Joey Logano, as I said in a couple videos ago now, he said he was going to be the one that was going to crash the next-gen car first, and sure enough, he did it. And not only did he take himself out, he actually took the 21 car with him, which, of course, is a Penske teammate. It's a satellite teammate, but the car's coming out of the same shop. And luckily for Logano, the Team Penske was wise, and they brought a backup car for him, and it looks like he will go to a backup, at least as Fox Sports was going off of the air. They had rolled the backup car off of the trailer, which is the universal sign that the backup car is going to be used. The primary is written off. But I have to say that I think everybody got really lucky that only 2 cars got torn up in these duels, because one of the big storylines for this race and going through at least the first half of this season are going to be the supply issues, are going to be the car issues. If you start writing off a whole bunch of cars, you're going to be in trouble. The good news is I don't think we were going to have to worry about that, but we're waiting on that because we have to talk about RFK Racing, and I bet you're surprised I have that, but there we go. I actually had a 6 car ready to go, and RFK Racing looks like Brad Keselowski was the magic bullet to get Roush Fenway Racing back competitive, because both of their cars, Brad in the first duel and Chris Buescher in the second duel, won. So they will start side by side in the second row of the Daytona 500. That's about as good of I know they technically debuted in the Clash, but the Clash doesn't count. This is about as good of a debut for a team, or I guess a rebranded team, as you can get. And it helps that they have the Ford. It seems like the Ford, and again, listen, man, if you've been watching this channel, you knew all this stuff already. You knew Logano was going to cause a crash. You knew that the Fords were cutting their drag, so they were going to be quick. You knew that Logano was going to be absolutely nuts, and you probably were able to figure out that the duels were going to be pretty tame because of the fact that everybody's worried about crashing their cars. However, I think the strategy to win the Daytona 500 in 2022 showed itself to be very, very clear in these two races. Number one, you've got to pit later than everybody else. It seems like green flag running is the way, the longer you can stay out under green flag conditions with low fuel loads, you are going to go quicker, you're going to gain time in the pits, you're going to be out in front. Second one is you need to be in the top four. We'll talk about this here in a bit because I think that's extremely important because it seems like if you're not in that first four, you're going to lose the draft, especially if there's not a whole bunch of cars behind you that are equal or better than the cars up in front. And third, well, you're going to need to be in a Ford. And like we talked about, the Fords, they had a change to their bodywork right before the Daytona 500. Again, I talked about this. Less drag, less downforce. Well, guess what? That's exactly what you want at Daytona. That's why they were trying to skew the cars, and then NASCAR told them to not do that. Well, but Ford got less downforce, less drag. Look at that. Once the Fords start running in a pack, they're quick, believe it or not. So here's what I expect in the race. There's been some weird drafting things. I think in the first duel you really saw this, and in the second duel a little bit too. Side force still seems to be a thing, particularly when two cars are running side by side, but the rest of the cars ahead are in a single file line. Now I know that's you probably are saying, well, of course, that's always how Daytona has been, but it seems like that effect has been amplified this year. And it goes to the second point, which is cars seem to be falling out of the draft faster than we have ever seen in recent Daytona memory. In fact, at the end of the second duel, and really you think about the two cars crashing at the end too, there were 8 cars on the lead lap in a 60-lap race? This is, I'm just going to say it, man, this is going to be the most old school Daytona 500 we've seen since 2000. And I know I'm saying 2000, and I know a lot of people didn't like that race. Some people claim it's the worst Daytona 500 of all time. I say it's 2013. But the point remains that this is going to have a very similar feel to those late 90s, early 2000 race, before 2001, before the Wicker Bills. And that's, I don't know how to feel about that, to be honest with you, because I may need to sleep on it, to be honest with you, because there's some things I really like about it. I like the idea of strategy being really important, nailing your pit stops being important, nailing your strategy of what laps to come in and who you pit with mattering. The fact that there will be multiple cars laps down, lap traffic being a factor for the leaders. We saw lap traffic be a factor in both duels, in both of the outcomes of both duels. When was the last time that happened in the Daytona 500, or a duel for that matter? So in some ways, I'm starting to think I kind of like this, because if it's only going to be 4 cars running up at the front, they don't have to worry about anybody attacking them because 5th place is 10 seconds back. So what we've seen is actually some pretty bold moves in that line. And we may see some really kind of interesting, exciting racing at the front for the lead because guys aren't going to necessarily have to worry about defending from 5th through 12th place. I don't know. It's going to be very different. I think that is the big takeaway for me from this race. And I know people were being a lot more careful, but I feel like, especially at the end of the second duel where it seemed really, really competitive, I don't think the strategy for those teams was to have most of the cars be a lap down and not even be in the hunt for the win. They didn't do that intentionally. That just happened. So that says to me that the Daytona 500 is going to look like that. And it's a good thing for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's going to feel like a legitimate race. And I think the fastest and best team may end up actually winning the Daytona 500 this year. And from that perspective, I think that's a good thing. The second good thing from that is that you're probably not going to have the massive wrecks that you had in the previous years. It may not be a demolition derby. And from the headline perspective, worrying about a part shortage, worrying about a car shortage, the less cars you tear up, the less chance you have of having that headline of a major team being out of cars. Now, on the opposite hand, if this race is branded by everybody, not everybody, but a large portion of the fan base as being boring, NASCAR's not going to want that. NASCAR's going to think it's going to ruin their crown jewel race if it's not a demolition derby, it's not 3 wide the whole time. Man, I don't know. This is kind of throwing a monkey wrench into everything, because I kind of thought it was going to be, because you did see the train, but the train seems like it gets broken up the first time they take a pit stop. And I think with the stages, it'll keep things a little bit closer. But a lot of times teams split the stages halfway, a lot like what we saw here at the duels. And if we treat a duel like one stage of the Daytona 500, half the field or more is a lap down. You only got one lucky dog. Man, this is intriguing. This is a lot more intriguing than maybe I thought it was going to be. So again, we'll have to see. But I think we're in it for something really different than we're perhaps used to. And I'll see if I'm wrong. It could just be the exact same thing. They're going to be 3 abreast the entire time and wrecking 20 times in a race. But it sure doesn't seem like it's going to be like that. I don't know. What do you think? What did you think of watching the duels? Let me know down in the comments section below. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more motorsport and Daytona 500 coverage throughout the week. And I'll see you in the next video.